Hello, everyone, and happy game day. Welcome into the PHLY Eagles Podcast. Jamie Lynch, Roy Burton, and Rich Hoffman here with you on this special evening in Philadelphia.
Uh-oh.
Little technical difficulties,
everybody.
I think we have that sorted out. I was just hearing myself in my head.
You sounded pretty good.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
are you guys like me, where you absolutely hate the sound of your own voice?
Absolutely.
All right, we're just gonna power through and see if I can just talk and not listen when we're good. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. Take two. Welcome into the PHLY Eagles Podcast. Live here from the Uptown Beer Garden at 15th and JFK. Jamie Lynch, Roy Burton, Rich Hoffman here with you. It's a special day in town as the Eagles are playing just south of here tonight. A lot happening. Jason Kelce is drunk on stage and on ESPN.
Yep.
Adam Schefter is tweeting breaking news in a mummer outfit. And the great Nick Foles gets honored tonight down at the Link. Zach Berman is going to join us at 7:50 live from the Link to bring us up to date on all of that. All right, let's just start with the big news. And that's the Eagles have to play only the second game of his tenure here without A.J. Brown tonight.
Right.
Roy, we'll start with you. How you feeling about this? Do you feel a Jahan Dotson step-up game? Is it Dallas Goedert? That's the big story of the game here is how are the Eagles going to respond without A.J.?
Yeah, it's definitely the big story. I feel a lot.
As I sip my Miller Lite.
Exactly. I feel a lot better than I felt the last time the Eagles lined up without A.J. Brown. Of course, that was the Tampa Bay playoff game last year, and obviously we know Devontae is going to get some work. But as you mentioned, the question: who's going to get those targets? Is it going to be Jahan Dotson? Is it going to be Dallas Goedert? Is it going to be another guy like Kenny Gainwell or Grant Calcaterra even? So a lot of questions. Even more so added to the questions that we have from that performance from last week. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen. I think it's going to be a big day for Dallas Goedert. But Rich, I don't know how you feel, but I think some of these other guys are going to step up, and I think the Eagles are going to win tonight.
So since 2022, so when the Eagles became a good team again, how many games have they missed? I'm asking you guys a question.
Sure.
I didn't prepare you for the quiz, but here it is. How many games have they missed? Have they been without even just one of A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith?
One of them.
Devontae is
He's missed.
He's a soldier. Like doesn't miss him.
He missed a couple.
Did he?
Yeah.
Two.
So I want to say three.
Just two.
Just two. Okay.
Last two games last year. At Giants, at Bucks.
Okay.
Okay, guys, those games were disasters.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, and I understand that the infrastructure has changed.
Sure.
Saquon Barkley is here. Thank God he's here. But, look, it's going to be on Jalen Hurts and on Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore, I thought from the first game we saw, okay, when AJ's here and Devontae's here and Saquon are here, those guys are going to eat. Those guys, there is a baseline level of production you're going to get from those guys that is pretty high. When you remove one of those guys, though, it's going to be a little more reliant on the scheme. And like Kellen Moore, those motion concepts, getting Devontae in the slot, all of the things we saw last week. And it's going to be on Jalen Hurts, too. So I'm looking at Kellen Moore, Jalen Hurts, can those two guys step up? Because A.J. Brown, look, man, one of the best 20 or so players in the NFL.
Sure. Well, it kind of asked, I was thinking about this earlier, Lane Johnson's probably, a future Hall of Famer.
I think it's clearly Lane and AJ are the two best guys on the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think you can make the case that AJ might be the most important Eagle, and they're going to be without him tonight on Monday Night Football down at the Link. But AJ Brown's missing from the lineup is massive. The one time Devontae played without AJ in the playoff game, I just lost my internet.
148 yards.
I was going to say,
awesome.
Daynez tweeted it out, the professor earlier, 148 yards. I believe it was 12 catches. So Devontae, we turn our attention to you. The Slim Reaper can certainly do it, but he's going to need somebody else to complement him, to take away the double coverage, to take away Atlanta just shutting them down, because Atlanta does have some safeties, and they might be able to focus things Devontae's way and make his night tough.
And working in the Eagles' favor is, I think he has a better, supporting cast than he had in that last game, because, God bless Julio Jones, but that wasn't a shell of Julio Jones that we saw last year.
Yes.
In
Much
January,
to Zach's chagrin,
with Quez Watkins, Olamide Zaccheaus. So the supporting cast
That's Rich's
around.
prep guy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize, Rich.
He went to school over there.
Apologize, Rich. So the supporting cast is a little bit better. But that being said, the Falcons' defense is pretty good. I mean, Raheem Morris, has these guys playing well, and they're not filled with a lot of superstars, but there's guys I mean, there's Matthew Judon, Grady Jarrett, Keenan Ellis, Justin Simmons. Those are guys Those are guys who are going to, be pretty decent. They're coming to play with their lunch pail, and they didn't give up a touchdown last week. So this is a pretty good defense, and this team, these ancillary guys are going to have to work for tonight. And I think these guys are going to step up into the challenge in this home opener.
The Negadelphian in me, by the way, and Roy, that I agree with you. On the back end, the Falcons are pretty good, especially on defense. The Negadelphian in me is saying, watching Jason Kelsey in the Big Dom suit, watching Adam Schefter in the Mummers costume. Guys, I don't like the juju on that. I feel like that's something that gets thrown
juju?
back in our face. Now, hopefully, we can't lose on Nick Foles night. So hopefully, whatever they got prepared for him, I think it's at halftime, right?
Yeah.
We cannot lose on Nick Foles night, okay? And I don't know. Like, I wrote this in the newsletter today. Maybe they bring out Keanu Neal and they fly in Sark from Texas to honor them as well, because those are legendary figures in delivering this city its one Super Bowl championship. So let me ask you about the other side of the ball, though. After Brazil, right, the pass rush pretty much non-existent.
Yeah, that's going to be a big focus of, I think, every Eagles fan's attention tonight is, how much was Bryce Huff? Look, that turf did suck. I was having George Toma Super Bowl flashbacks.
He was living somewhere. He was upset looking at that turf in Sao Paulo.
And a lot of people that go through the film and the tape did say Bryce Huff might have suffered from the field conditions more than anyone. But the fact is, he was the big move to replace Hassan Reddick, which that situation is a disaster in itself. But
not
you
for
need,
us.
yeah, not for us.
Not for us.
For Joe Douglas, that is quite a mess. But you're going to need to see something tonight from that pass rush. It's got to be a Josh Sweat. Brandon Graham, I thought, played pretty excellent last week for the old head in the locker room.
Sure.
But you're going to need to see somebody. And if it has to be Jalen Carter, it has to be Jalen Carter. But Kirk Cousins, Rich, to your point, is a bleeping statue back there.
He looks so bad.
Cannot move.
You have to hit this guy coming off of an Achilles. He can't move. He's not going to be mobile. I feel like Kirk Cousins has always played well against the Eagles, except for like some boneheaded, not scoring with 1 second left before the half type of moves. He always seems to play well against the Eagles, but he can't move, and they got to hit him tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing for his whole career is he's really good at play-action passing, right? And that's a skill, right? Being able to take your eyes away from the defense, from the defense for a second and still being able to scan the field quickly. He can't do that. And I guess, Jamie, I was thinking, were they saving stuff in week one? Was the Falcons' whole goal hey, we're going to treat week one against Pittsburgh like the fourth preseason game and then come with something different? Because I will say, they were as limited, they made last year's Eagles offense look diverse last week.
Yeah.
It was completely predictable. They were running out of pistol. They were throwing out of shotgun for the most part. Like you said, Kirk Cousins couldn't move. I am hoping, if they are that predictable, that's what the money is for Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio should be able to dial up a scheme. He is not like a Jonathan Gannon, I have to play one way and we are limiting big plays. I am really hoping that both the pass rush and the defensive coordinator can kind of figure this out. And, Kirk Cousins didn't throw a ball over 20 yards last week.
No.
Let's see it.
They had one play over 20 yards last week, and like you mentioned,
get up on them.
0 design runs out of shotgun. 81% of their pistol plays were runs. So again, everything by the numbers. I have to imagine because in today's day and age, September's a new August. Week 1 and week 2 is a new preseason. So I have to imagine that they just wanted to ease Kirk Cousins back in, week 1, just see what he can do just functionally as a quarterback. I have to imagine something different happens in week 2. Because if not, I think the Eagles should feast tonight.
Yeah, my boomer, I'll die on this hoagie mouth take is that, they should at least play one preseason game. Like, I just think there's something to it. And if you're just joining us, welcome into the PHLY Eagles pregame show presented by Miller Lite. Thank you, Miller Lite, as always, for having us out. It's the original light beer since 1975, and to this day, it's still the best one. Only 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than a premium regular beer. I want to ask Zach on the other, while we'll stay on the defensive side of the ball. He was kind of talking about Quinyon Mitchell this week in some of his 60-second breakdowns and some of his writing. Look, they have Drake London and they have Bijan Robinson that are two guys you have to focus on. And Quinyon Mitchell might be too talented for the slot, as Zach said. So I'm curious tonight if Vic tinkers a little bit with the cornerback positions, because Bijan can run, he can catch. Drake London is big and tall, can cause some problems. So I'm curious, secondary-wise, do they do anything different tonight?
Yeah, I think they probably do something a little bit different, but that's the thing. It's like, who do you? Let me ask you guys. If you have Quinyon Mitchell, who do you put him on?
I want to see him versus Drake London.
You
know what I mean?
You want to go?
I want to go all in.
You want to go? Well, again, because big play Slay wants that matchup.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Again, if
he gets it, if he wants it.
If you can navigate that, then you want Quinyon Mitchell.
I want him on the outside.
A1 against.
I think he's your second best player, and I want to see what this kid has, because I feel like it's something down the line that's just going to pay dividends for the kid. Then you can go Ringo or DeJean inside. I think Avante got picked on a little bit last week down in Brazil.
So what do you think it's going to be? Because you have Isaiah Rodgers and his hand are back. The gambler is back. But, even if you think he is your third best corner, right, that would probably require bumping Quinyon inside. And it's like you were saying, Jamie, like, I think Quinyon is – I know it was just one game.
I know.
I think he's graduated. I think let's see him on the outside. No, I mean, maybe he ends up following some of these guys, can play on the inside in some situations. So what do you think happens? Do you think they go back to Avante or do you think –
I mean, Kyle Pitts, look, another local kid. He's big. Like, I don't like Avante,
Well, who is it then, Roy?
I don't – I would think Avante hits the bench, and maybe I don't know how much Ringo played inside in the training camp.
I think it's got to be DeJean if it's not Avante. Yeah. Which, by the way, like, if Avante's going to give you that level of play that we saw last week, and hey, look, maybe he had a bad game.
Sure.
Like Avante was playing on that crappy turf.
I think Avante's a solid player.
Yeah. So maybe they give him another shot.
Sure.
But if we have a couple games here and that is kind of his baseline level, you have to play the kid, because the kid he might give you that level right now, but he also gives you the promise of, like, he'll probably get a little bit better by the end of the season, right? So, it seems like Vic Fangio has been harping on that the training camp really put Cooper DeJean behind, and he was like, I get it. He was out for I think over 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So I understand that. But at some point, I do think, like, all roads sort of lead to it's going to be Quinyon, it's going to be Slay, and it's going to be Cooper inside. So.
Yeah.
The Ray McLeod, wide receiver on the Falcons, showed up tonight in a Randall jersey.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Listen, the pandering does not work if you play for the other team, okay?
Yeah.
Nick Sirianni can pander to us because he's our coach. You guys can't do it.
But the Falcons do have some weapons. I mean, Drake London, the first-round pick from last year, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, Kyle Pitts, the Archbishop Wood kid, who hasn't really lived up to the billing yet in the NFL by any means.
Don't tell Zach that.
Yeah. But every fantasy guy this year kind of said, this is the bust-out year for Kyle Pitts, so he's somebody you do have to worry about. And then, of course, Bijan Robinson. And I think Bijan Robinson is going to give these linebackers a little bit of work tonight. And one of the other pieces of news coming out of this is Devin White's inactive. And Zach's going to join us in 7 minutes.
Okay.
And this is a healthy inactive, which is a really bad sign for the Devin White signing. It's great to have a veteran like that in the locker room that has been as talented as he has been for some of these young kids to lean on and stuff. But swing and a miss, looks like this was a bad sign.
Yeah, he was brought in to be basically the starter, or one of the starters at middle linebacker. And if he's not, again, last week it's like, all right, maybe he's injured, didn't make the trip or whatever. If he's a healthy scratch at this point, I imagine what Jalix Hunt probably got the start, probably got the call to today. If you're benching him for Jalen
and they released Patrick Johnson earlier today.
If you're benching Devin White for Jalen Sutter or one of these young guys, it's a problem.
Well, the problem is when you're a backup and you're a linebacker, you have to play special teams.
Yeah, you got to do something else.
And Patrick Johnson was a special team stalwart for these guys, so they actually have to replace that spot on the roster.
He had the most snaps of anybody on special teams over the last, I think, 2 years.
Yeah, and so if Devin White is not going to do that, I'm pretty sure he's not a special teams guy, right?
No.
Because he's been a starting linebacker his entire career. Yeah. Then I think it actually makes some sense. Now, I will be interested, like, at some point, are they just going to keep him on ice for 7 weeks? And
that's what I was thinking.
Is he the third linebacker? Is he somebody if, let's say, N'Kobe gets hurt, because that's happened before?
Is it Trotter or is it Devin White? Like,
I don't know.
What happens there?
I don't know. It's a very weird situation.
And I think Zach Berman played out of his mind. Good last week. The guy was everywhere on the field. He was blitzing. He was covering. He was stopping the run. He was a menace. And now, I want to believe that Zach Berman is that every week. And I hope he is. He looks like the love child of Lane Johnson and Jalen Hurts if you saw the memes.
He does.
He looks exactly like him.
He kind of does.
A face mash, if you put it. Yeah.
He kind of does.
But we can't assume he's a given yet. Sure. And N'Kobe Dean, we're still learning and knowing. And then it's Trot. And you look at the linebacker position, and if I'm, the Falcons, I'm trying to find a way to get Bijan one-on-one with our linebackers every single play.
But so the bad news for Devin White, though, is that Trot is probably like the same thing with Cooper DeJean. Like, rookies get better, even just from practicing as the season goes along. So he might be more ready by week 8. And Jamie, like you said, Zach Berman, I want to believe in him.
Sure.
But so I'm not sure he's all that. But he was so good.
He was great.
He has bought himself a few games
here.
He would have to fall off an absolute cliff to be replaced because he was so good. So Devin White, very odd for somebody who you were just reading the training camp reports and it's like, he got the first team snaps again. Yeah, he got the first team snaps again. And it's like, I'm not sure I see a pathway to the field for this guy unl's somebody gets hurt.
I think it was only $3.5 million. Maybe 4 guaranteed.
For the Eagles, that's huge money. Linebacker, man. Howie's like, Jesus.
Let me ask you guys a question.
Yeah.
So the Eagles got gashed by the running game last week by the Packers. Obviously, you have to worry about Bijan. Obviously, you have to worry about Kyle Pitts going across the middle. Again, who gets the Kyle Pitts assignment? Who gets the Bijan assignment? Because, again, Zach Berman's kind of, he was kind of the.
I'm not sure I want N'Kobe Dean getting Kyle Pitts in pass coverage.
N'Kobe Dean's not the greatest in pass coverage.
He's kind of got alligator arms a little bit,
Like he's kind of a downhill kind of attack the football kind of guy. So, again, somebody has to draw those assignments.
Yeah, I think the middle of the field is where the Falcons are going to try to attack tonight, and even bringing a guy like Drake London across the middle and trying to see what these guys are made of. Did they see Zach Berman being over-aggressive last week and over pursuing some things where they try to take advantage of that? Do they just get Bijan going in the run game? So defensively, I do think this is not a cakewalk tonight by any means. I mean, if you start hitting Kirk Cousins, back to our original point, it makes life a lot easier.
Sure.
So we'll see what happens tonight.
It's going to be a lot of Bijan because I think Kirk Cousins, that film from week 1 was so bad. I think they are going to do everything they can to take the ball out of his hands, which is, by the way, not ideal when you give him that much money in free agency.
Exactly.
What was it, like $160 million in free agency? Yep. He was the most expensive player in free agency by a mile. But, I mean, he just couldn't move. So, yeah.
Yeah, so before we get to, I think
Zach's going to join us any second here, but we'll take care of some business before we check in with Zach.
Take care of a little bit of business. And, gents, I don't know if you guys know, but I try to go to one road game every single year. And so next week, I'm actually heading down to New Orleans.
Good pick.
For the game next week.
I love Nola.
I got the hotel room. My buddy bought the tickets from our friends over at the GameTime app. So the only thing better than watch parties like what we have here at Uptown Beer Garden is going to the actual games themselves. And the best way to get tickets for those games is from our friends over at the GameTime app. GameTime has a new feature called GameTime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. GameTime Picks filters out the nonsense to show you the best deals on the best seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through all thousands of listings. In addition, the GameTime app shows all-in pricing, so you don't have to deal with the uncertainties of hidden fees. It also has seat views, so you can get a panoramic view from your seat directly within the app. And most importantly, GameTime has a low price guarantee that if you find a lower price anywhere, GameTime will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app on your phone right now, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Download GameTime today. What time is it? Game time.
GameTime is awesome. I used it out in Wrigley Field this summer. It's a tremendous app. And when I was at Wrigley, what did they have? Miller Lights, yeah.
There you go.
So I grabbed myself a cold, delicious Miller Lite. And when you got friends and family around, nothing hits a spot like a delicious Miller Lite. A lot has changed since 1975, but the one thing that hasn't is the great taste of Miller Lite. It's a 96-calorie light beer that tastes like light beer should taste. Like when I picture the taste of a beer in my mind, I think of Miller Lite. And a lot has changed, but Miller Lite hasn't because they held on to what matters most and got rid of everything else you don't need. They keep it simple. It's the beer that just strips away everything you don't need. It's a light beer that tastes like beer. The original since 1975, and to this day, it's still the best one. You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Tastes like Miller time. To get Miller Lite delivered right to your door, visit MillerLite.com/PHLY Eagles, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories per 12 ounces. All right, let's not waste any time. Let's get down to Lincoln Financial Field and check in with our man Zach Berman, who is down at the stadium for Nick Foles night. Zach, I can't see you live. I'm trusting that your backdrop is up to speed tonight. How are we doing on the backdrop? You feel like this is a good one for you?
Yeah, this is a good one. So I know the stadium. So before the game,
hiccup. We'll check in with Zach here momentarily. But first question is usually the backdrop. Zach stresses about it. Me and Bo like to rib him about. Yeah.
Video, you gotta make sure.
Pre-game, he's more in the press row, sometimes surrounded by Kempski and others. Zach, are you there? Do we have you?
I am here. Do you have me?
There we go.
Yes, we got you, Zach.
You have me? Great. Okay, terrific. Yeah,
Zach,
so
how was the vibe at the stadium?
It's exciting. It's excitement here, to be honest with you. I got here around 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock. Parking lots were already filled. There's, it's the home opener. I know last week was technically a home game. This is the home opener, primetime game. You can imagine how the fans are going into this one. You added in the fact that Jason Kelsey is here. I went across the street to catch up with our old colleague Fletcher Cox before the game.
Fletch.
So I was in Xfinity Live, and it was pretty rabid there. And then Nick Foles is here, so it's the type of crowd that can provide certainly an intangible benefit to the Eagles.
Zach, before Richard and Roy take it over here, anything jump out from the inactives meeting?
Well, the inactives, Devin White's down, right? Which I wouldn't say is a major surprise considering the fact that he's not a starter and he doesn't play special teams. But it is notable considering that here's someone who was with the first team throughout the summer. The Eagles signed him, to a $3.5 million guaranteed deal, 4.5 overall. So the fact that he's inactive, speaks to kind of where he is with the roster right now. Now that could change, of course. For the past 5 years, the Eagles had to start more than 2 linebackers. So we'll see how that progresses. But as of now, Devin White's inactive. The other notable in the inactives is that Johnny Wilson is active. Johnny Wilson was questionable. He dinged up his hamstring on Saturday, but he is in the lineup tonight, or he is dressed tonight to play.
ZB, you wrote a story today for our diehards about Nick Foles and the memories that you have of him. What do you expect about from the Eagles tonight? Like, what is the ceremony going to look like? And really, how has it been so far today with him?
Yeah, so as far as the ceremony, he is the honorary captain, right? So he'll be out there for the coin toss. I don't know specifically when the Eagles will announce him to the crowd, but I spoke to him pregame. They had a press conference here, and he has his entire extended family. It seems, not just his parents and his wife and kids, but his in-laws, his brother-in-laws, his nieces and nephews.
Oh, if I'm getting enshrined, Zach, I'm flying the whole family out. Everyone's coming.
Yeah. So he's letting them know they haven't experienced a football game in Philly before, so they're in for it. But it was Nick was emotional before the game, discussing his parents, discussing his wife. He offered the perspective about his career. He says he wants to be remembered as someone who help teammates. And yeah, I mean, it was, he spoke about the Philly special. He spoke about winning the Super Bowl. As far as the events of tonight, we'll see when he's announced. But I can imagine from talking to people in the parking lots that there is a lot of excitement about seeing Nick Foles.
Hey, Zach, this is Roy. We are here, of course, getting ready for the third annual Kirk Cousins Invitational because it's the third time that he has come into town, week 2, for a primetime game in Philadelphia, third straight year. Of course, this year is a little bit different because he's coming off the Achilles injury. Just kind of warming up in pregame, seeing him out on the field. Anything different you notice about how he's moved around before the game?
Well, I'm glad you asked that because I neglected my responsibilities here. I was focused on the Eagles and their lineups during pre-games. I really wanted to see what the alignments were for the Eagles on both sides, that I did not watch Kirk Cousins. And that's something I should have done. So I can't tell you specifically how Kirk Cousins looked. I do know from talking to people throughout the week that they feel he's healthy enough to play, and it certainly didn't seem that way on film last week. But we'll have a better idea during the game. But I wish I had a better answer for you there. I was watching the Eagles' offensive alignment and defensive alignment to kind of see who the starters will be tonight.
Zach, obviously only the second game the Eagles have played without A.J. Brown during his tenure here. Last time we saw Devontae kind of go nuts, 148 yards in his game without A.J. What do you expect tonight? This, to me, smells like kind of a game where you need Dallas Goedert to step up. Do you think Jahan Dotson gets in the mix a lot? Do you think they focus more on Goedert? Or do you think they just feed the Slim Reaper all game and deal with the repercussions?
Yeah, I think Goddard will be the biggest beneficiary in the passing game. Now, I'm curious to see if the devotion's to the running game or not. And a lot of that's going to be dictated by the defense. If you think back, Roy mentioned the Kirk Cousins Invitational last year. Last year, week 2, the home opener here, when they played Kirk Cousins, the Eagles ran the ball quite a bit. And the reason they did that was there's Bo behind me. You can see Bo's like a celebrity here, man. People are so excited to see him back here. The Eagles ran the ball with DeAndre Swift throughout that game. And the reason is because the Vikings were playing off and threatening them to run. I'm expecting the Falcons to stack the box a little bit more. That's what they were doing against Pittsburgh last week. And I think it's going to be so if the passing game's there for the Eagles, then my guess is Dallas Goedert's the biggest beneficiary.
Zach, you mentioned the offensive and defensive alignments. Anything stand out to you from those?
Yeah. So what jumped out to me is Avonte Maddox was in the slot. Quinyon Mitchell was on the outside. Ooh, and this was a big question going into the game because we were wondering, would Quinyon Mitchell move inside in nickel so they could play Isaiah Rodgers on the outside? Isaiah Rodgers, of course, did not play last week. Is playing tonight. And then we wanted to see if they kept Quinyon on the outside, which is what I expected. Would it be a Maddox or would it be Cooper DeJean? And it was not Cooper DeJean. It was Avonte Maddox. So that's what jumped out there. Now, on the offensive side, I wanted to see what the alignment was with the wide receivers. And this kind of struck me as odd, but I'll get into why it's relevant. They had Devontae Smith in the slot. They had Jahan Dotson on one side, Britton Covey on the other side. I'm not expecting Britton Covey to be an outside receiver tonight. I think they can mix and match there. But I am expecting to see Devontae Smith in the slot quite a bit. Last week, he took the highest percentage of snaps in the slot that he has in his career. And if you watch that Falcons-Steelers game, the Falcons' top cornerback, A.J. Terrell, he was on George Pickens' side throughout most of the game, but he did not follow George Pickens into the slot. George Pickens only played 5 snaps in the slot last week. Devontae Smith can play upwards of 30 to 40 snaps in the slot. So I'm really curious to see if the Eagles do that to try to isolate Devontae Smith away from A.J. Terrell.
Hey, Zach, can we go back to the defense for a second? Because I saw the inactives that we talked about, and I see that Jalix Hunt is up and he's kind of ready to go. And, they kind of had like a potpourri, a mix of guys they threw out there, at the pass rush position last week. Is Jalix Hunt in the mix for that tonight, or is he just a depth guy?
Yeah, so right now he's a developmental player. In that if you look at the playing time distribution last week, the Eagles really only played, or I shouldn't say only, they played 4 edge rushers, right? And that was their rotation. The 5th edge rusher last week was Patrick Johnson, but he was up for special teams. The Eagles waived him today. And so Jalix Hunt, really, he unless there's an injury, or the Eagles go deeper on the edge, he doesn't have a defensive role right now.
Gotcha.
And then from a special teams perspective, there's just other options that they're going with. The reason Patrick Johnson was up last week was for special teams. So we'll kind of see how that shakes out. I know they're high on Jelix Hunt here, but Jelix Hunt doesn't have an immediate role from a defensive perspective on game day.
So, Zach, I'm sure during the course of the week, Saquon Barkley, and you did a great piece going back to his hometown and talking to the people that were with him when he was little Saquon, before he was famous. Now he's playing his first game in South Philadelphia, not far from where he grew up. How excited is he? How much family does he have coming in? And I would expect, Nick Sirianni wants to employ his new toy on Monday Night Football once again.
Yeah, well, he's eager to play here, wearing Eagles green. He's played here a lot on the other side. He has not had a lot of success here from a win-loss perspective. Even dating back when he was on Penn State, I believe Penn State lost to Temple when he was on Penn State, right?
That's right. Yep.
In the link. So he hasn't had a lot of success in the stadium. But now he's an Eagle. Yeah, I mean I think it's a big game for the fans in that regard too. Seeing Saquon.
Sure.
I've been saying throughout the offseason, Saquon wasn't the high-priced acquisition. That was Bryce Huff. Saquon was the high-profile acquisition, right? And so, you see in the parking lot, there's 26 jerseys that people are wearing. I think there's a lot of excitement from the fans, in particular, to see Saquon in Eagles green.
Yeah, and we just got the cursed image of the ESPN pregame show, Zach, where every single person picked the Birds to win. Always hate that. I don't know if that's just the Negadelphian in me, but I always hate when everybody's picking the Birds. But how you feeling about the game tonight overall? What's your opinion on what we're talking about post-game here?
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously, A.J. Brown's injury is
huge.
a significant blow to the Eagles. Yeah. But I still think the Eagles are the better team. I think they have tangible and intangible advantages here. Tangible advantage is being, I think they're better on the lines of scrimmage. I like the Falcons' skill players. I like the Falcons' secondary. I don't love the Falcons on the line of scrimmage. And you saw last week when you watched that Steelers-Falcons game, Caleb McGarry, he struggled there. And I think this needs to be a better game for the Eagles pass rush there. We're still looking to see how Kirk Cousins looks coming off that injury. And then the intangible advantage, so I think the Eagles have the advantage on both lines of scrimmage. The intangible advantages I was referring to is this crowd, right? And I'm not pandering to the audience when I say that. A primetime game in Philly to open the season when Jason Kelsey's in the house and Nick Foles is being honored. That's an intangible advantage. Like, this should be a difficult place for opponents to come in and play. Roy mentioned Kirk Cousins coming in here the past 2 years to open the season. The Eagles won both those games, right? So I think they beat the Vikings week 2 in 2022. They beat the Vikings week 2 in 2023, and I think that both those atmospheres were home openers, primetime games, and I think that needs to be an advantage for the Eagles. So I like the Eagles in this game. I don't think it's going to be as high scoring as as some others think. But ultimately, if the Eagles don't turn over the ball the way they did last week, I think they're 2-0 going into a tough game against the Saints next week.
Nice.
All right. Awesome work, Zach, as always. We'll let you go so everybody in the press box doesn't get annoyed by you. I know you always worry about that. But thank you for joining us. We will talk to you in the post game immediately after Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts' press conference. Great work, as always. Talk to you soon, buddy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, there he is. Before we get into our best bets and all that, we were mentioning Saquon. Andrew, if you want to show the people, the good people, the new shirt that we just dropped mentioning Saquon and his trip from Happy Valley down to Lincoln Financial Field. That is up as a diehard. You can obviously choose that one as your free merch. It's for sale there. And some of your local Dick's, look out. PHLY shirts are hitting the shelves in Dick's. Currently, guys, Rich and Roy.
Yes, sir.
The Eagles are down at the line. A little bit of movement right now on Bet365. It went from -6 to -5.5 at kickoff.
Okay.
I hate when I see everybody pick the Eagles. I don't know if you guys are the same way or not. But what is your ultimate vibe here on the Eagles kind of line and just overall win-loss? My personal feeling is that they win a hard-fought, close game and don't cover. If I had a gun to my head right now, I would say Eagles W, no cover.
I think I have to kind of go with Zach. I mean, The Eagles are the better team on the lines, and I think they're the more talented team. They're favored for a reason. The crowd's going to be electric tonight.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably going to be one of the keys. Even without A.J. Brown, being there to kind of hold the offense down, I think the crowd and the energy of the real home opener is going to boost this team to a win. I like them to just cover, so I'll give me 24-17 if you have to nail me down on the score, but I think they take care of business tonight.
I hear what you're saying, Jamie, because honestly, I looked at the slate before all the other games.
It was a weird weekend
and
out
it was,
there.
It's a very weird weekend.
And but it's always a bad sign when I was like, I actually think the Eagles -6, -6.5, whatever it was, that felt like the best bet to me before A.J. Brown got hurt.
Sure.
And then,
Sure.
I just thought when A.J. was there, they do have the rest. They're playing at home. Like, I just thought they were going to be able to outclass them. There is an element of unknown here, right?
Sure.
This has not happened that often where they've been even without one of A.J. or Devontae. It went terribly last year. You have a guy in Jahan Dotson who got one target last week that almost got ran back to the house, or whatever. And they are banking on him to get some of A.J.'s touches. So, Jamie, I agree with you. I think the Eagles are going to win, but I do feel like, just from a gambling standpoint, like it feels like A.J., they should be docked more than a half point with A.J. out.
Yeah, it's a huge deal not playing with A.J. Brown. We talked about it as we kicked off the show. He might be legit like their best player, and Lane Johnson's a guy that's going to be in Canton one day, most likely. He's that good. He's that important. And Jalen's decision-making last week was not his best.
Much more important this week, right? He just does not have that guy to break the 75-yard touchdown, which, by the way, was a great throw by Jalen, so I'm not taking anything away from him. But, man, he had a lot of margin for error last week. The margin for error, I know they're playing a worse team this time, but it's less.
Yeah,
it's less. Yeah.
It is. All right, so let's get into some of our Bet365 best bets of the game. Bo and I do this every single pregame, and, of course, when you guys are with us, we continue it on. On Bet365 right now, if you use promo code PHLY365, you can claim $200 in bonus bets by using that promo code. Nice. I spread mine out to a bunch of futures. Luckily won some week one parlays. I'm playing with house money a little bit.
There we go.
Bet365 was very rude, and they took back a lot of my winnings and profits this weekend.
Hate when that happens.
As it was a bloodbath. I love the Cowboys this weekend.
Underdogs were 10-4-1 against the spread this week.
It was awful. So Bo Wolf, who we saw behind Zach, being classic Bo, is going with very similar. Both players that we chose are the same guys. Bo's going with Dallas Goedert over 4.5 catches on Bet365, which I think is a great bet. I might actually like it better than my Dallas Goedert bet. And Bijan Robinson, longest run over 15.5 yards.
Ooh, I like that.
I like both of Bo's bets. I will
those.
say that.
Like
Mine tonight, I'm going with the opposite. I'm going Bijan over 29.5 receiving yards.
Okay.
And I'm going over Goddard 42.5 yards. So those are our two. What do you guys got for us?
I'm going to let Rich go because I stole one of Rich's bets, so I feel bad. So I want Rich to go first.
No, it was funny. Roy and I were talking about it before the show, Jamie. You weren't here. Roy and I both like Kenny Gainwell tonight, and I'm going to give you. I'm going to give you the reason why.
Yeah.
I think Roy's reason is good too. But I was kind of wondering.
Reasons.
I was wondering who is going to take AJ's targets, because if you look at AJ's career, it's basically 8 to 10 targets that are going to other people now, right? And obviously, like, the game flow could be a little bit different. Maybe they run the ball 40 times like they did against the Vikings last year when Kirk Cousins came in here. Anyway, Jamie, I think Zach's point that the Eagles are good on the offense or just better on both lines of scrimmage, I think that is going to be the key tonight. And frankly, I think they are going to be up by enough points that Saquon Barkley, like Nick Sirianni the whole week got asked about, are you going to give Saquon Barkley close to 30 touches every week? And I think he said, no, I mean, that game called for him to get that many touches.
Right.
See, I think as somebody, Nick Sirianni loves Kenny Gainwell, probably trusts him a little too much, honestly.
Probably a little too much.
I like that little juke he made last week.
Yeah.
But I think they get enough of a cushion, and they start running the ball a little bit late. Kenny Gainwell is over 9.5 rushing yards plus 105. I like that because I think the Eagles are going to be able to run the ball against these guys, and I don't think it's going to have to be like such a taxing Saquon game.
Agreed. And Kenny Gainwell, again, I will go into receiving yards. I had it last week, the 4.5. I don't know if you remember, over 4.5 receiving yards. This week it's 6.5 receiving yards, minus 110 at Bet365.
I mean, that should be one little baby wheel route, right?
Can I add a little something to it? Kenneth Gainwell over 1.5 receptions, plus 140.
Oh,
you
some
stacked
plus money there.
Plus money. Give me 2 catches and 7 yards for Kenny Gainwell, and we're buying Miller Lights for everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as simple as that. So let's roll.
Yeah. So this is an exciting one tonight. You know, the home opener, as Zach said, it's such BS that last week was a home game. Like, they got to figure. I mean, I know there's no other way to do it right now with the odd number games, but like the second home game of the year, the home opener, it's Nick Foles night. Damn it, you can't lose on Nick Foles.
Can't lose on Nick Foles night.
You know, he's dragging that thing into the stadium. He's putting it on the podium. He's talking to the people. You can't lose that game. But it's a good one. It's going to be, you know, I think it's going to be a tough game. The Falcons are just you have that team that you always kind of like feel is like a pebble in your shoe.
Sure.
I always feel like that's the Falcons with the Eagles for whatever reason. And Kirk Cousins is kind of that guy. I feel like he's the most mid quarterback that's ever quarterbacked. And then he like plays well against the Eagles.
But he never really has that pebble at night. Again, it's night. You look outside, it's night. Kirk Cousins 3-10.
Beautiful evening.
3-10 in primetime games. So if nothing else, believe in the fact that Kirk Cousins does not like when the lights go on. Come on.
I hope you're right. That is going to do it for us down here at the Uptown Beer Garden. Guys, this is an absolutely gorgeous spot to have a Miller Lite.
Yeah.
We're looking at a green lit City Hall right next to us. I mean, you couldn't pick a better night to go to a football game. A little bit of a breeze in the air, nice and cool. Great vibes. We saw a buddy Mac Rourke with a bacon-wrapped alligator down at the tailgates today in the lots. Would you guys dive into a bacon-wrapped alligator?
What does alligator taste like?
Tastes like chicken, apparently.
I like bacon, but I'm not sure about alligator.
Yeah, I have no interest in the gator.
Yeah.
And maybe if it's in a gumbo or something, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm out on that. But it's going to be a great time. And again, thanks to our friends at Miller Lite for sending us here to the Uptown Beer Garden. Absolutely awesome spot here at 15th and JFK. Right by the train station, so if you need a Miller Lite on your way home, right next to City Hall. Yeah, of course. Enjoy responsibly. And, of course, our friends over at Bet365. Let's win some of their money tonight. And it was great to meet Die Hard Val out here tonight. Awesome time meeting her and a couple of others as well. So that's going to do it for us here from the Uptown Beer Garden. To everybody that tuned in, go Birds! Bo Wolf and Fran Duffy will be live at halftime with immediate first half reactions, and then coming up in the post-game show, myself, Bo, Fran, and this guy named Vinny Curry.
I've heard of him.
I think he's got a big piece of jewelry he likes to wear from 2018. He will be with us as well, and then Zach Berman joining us from the stadium. So we've got you covered here at PHLY all evening long. Make sure you tune in to Bo and Fran at halftime. For Rich, Roy, myself, go Birds. We'll see you soon.
We all silly like the mayor.